Good morning and welcome to our live talk program. This is Lloyd Gerber here, your host on Revive Reform Radio, doing our live talk program covering motivation on this your Monday morning rise and shine and give God the glory. And this morning here, I'm looking at the topic a life of service instead of oppression. A life of service instead of oppression. Welcome, top of the morning to you. Hopefully, you had a blessed weekend. You're ready to take on the challenges of this work week. Let us pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, I thank you for this day, for this week, and for life. Pray that you may bless us as we study together and meditate together on these things. May you bless each and every one of our work, and may we truly be of service to our fellow human beings. This is my prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. So I'm looking here at the topic, a life of service instead of oppression. A life of service instead of oppression. This is a process of meditation as we look at motivation. So how to be your best this week as you go to work, how to, as I say, take the best opportunities you can and make the most of what you are doing there so that you can serve best. And the better you serve is the more powerful it is in your life experience, and the better you feel about life. So a life of service, and then the second part there, instead of oppression. I think this has been part of what it is. I say it off my paper here. It says the history of humanity seems to be about this human failing, which is oppression or oppressing each other. How many wars and embargoes are about oppression? So when we think about the context of humanity, we could see that there's so much things that has to do with war, and to do with just these various different upheavals that go on. But most of this has to do with oppression. As a matter of fact, if you think about most of the popular movements that as the world has seen at our movement for various different things, all centered around one human being trying to oppress their fellow human being. And so as Christians, we choose Christ's way. Christ's way is a life of service. This life of service is a better way. It would spare us so much problem, so much upheavals, where people from we're young, our parents are trying to teach us and our guardians to share our toys, and to be fair, to be just in our dealings. And because of this, where we're not, it end up spilling out into bloodshed over and over again, and then come by somebody that will say is a hero for the people, because there's a group or a person who decide to speak out against one group oppressing the other group. And we normally say, these people are significant figures, whether it be Jesus himself or Gandhi or Marcus Garvey or Martin Luther King Jr. It's just the issue here is that one group want to be able to have certain benefits and get it at the hands of another group. And when this happens, it's just simply oppression. And we tend to favor people who work with us to oppress even their own fellow human beings. You could call them traitors or whatever it is, but everywhere you go, you can find a group person like, look, if you oppress your people for me, I'll give you a cut. And this is how the world has been shaped. And in the last probably 100 and something years since we came out of the darkness of the oppression that was coming out of the Roman system, this has been a push towards workers' rights, towards not having children working in sweatshops, towards having a decent work week where people get a day off. And so much different rights has been garnered, women's rights, voting rights, all these things, because we're constantly struggling as humanity to just do business fair and to offer service and be compensated for that service. We have come up with various different isms, whether it be democracy or socialism or communism and all kind of isms, to try to figure out how to make the system fair. And no matter what we do, human beings still want to be able to not put the day's work in and get a full day's pay, or they want to be able to get way more than they've worked for. And it's almost like, as I say, stealing something from a baby. Don't put your hand in the cookie jar. The temptation is always there for us to try to get over, for us to be able to spend, as many people have a daydream of spending the day on the beach and still making money, money just coming in. So as Christian, we choose a life of service over dominance and tyranny. You can be above me, in charge. You can be my boss. And this is me talking here. You can be my jefe, as long as you are fair and not oppressive. So the issue is not sometimes who's in charge, who's boss, who's dominant. The issue is, are you fair? Because somebody has to take charge. Somebody has to make a final decision. 10 people, unless they agree on the same thing, will not come to a proper conclusion. Somebody have to ultimately, you'd have to do a vote, or you have to have somebody to say, okay, we're going to do a blend of all the ideas, or we're going to do this one thing. But it's nothing wrong. As long as the end product is, you're going to put in your labor, I put in my labor, you get fair compensation for your labor, I get fair compensation for my labor. Fair compensation not necessarily mean that we all get the same pay. It just means fair compensation for labor. It doesn't make sense that you work 10 hours and I work 40 and the two of us get the same pay. Now, it might make sense. It depends on what you're doing, but all of that is all the equation between fair labor. So oppression has always been the way, and as I say, especially in the last probably 200 years or so, about that, we've been going back and forth because we're looking at that old system, and humanity have been saying, yeah, that's the way it's always been done, but we need to break from it. And there's many saying, no, I prefer that system because I can get compensation for work I didn't do. And I understand why somebody will fight for that, because if you can get the benefit and never do the work, sure, that's great for you, but it's terrible for somebody else. In Romans chapter 2, verse 10 and 11, Romans chapter 2, verse 10 and 11 says, but glory, honor, and peace to every man that worketh good, to the Jew first and also to the Gentile. For there is no respecter or respect of person with God. So there's no respect of person with God. So think about that. If you do good and you get a good result from it, that's fair. If you do bad, you get a bad result. That's fair. Now, I know the human heart is that we often want to get the results that we didn't work for. But if somebody out there worked for it, you have to say, hats off to you, son. You did the work. Now, somebody would say, no, I don't want that. And this is what we're struggling with. When you watch protests and you watch all these things, you could focus, which you should, and understand why somebody's out there protesting. But then you could pull back and you say, oh, it's the same regular problem. One group want to oppress the other group, or one person want to get all the gravy, all the honey for themselves, and they don't want nobody else to get any. And they want too much, more than their hearts can desire, more than they can ever enjoy. And they want everybody to live in a little box in a corner somewhere. And that's not really right, because none of us created nothing. We all just came here. And none of us own anything per se. We're just sojourners. The Christian accepts the fact that he's a sojourner, he's a pilgrim. A regular person out there that don't believe no God, they don't even ever thought about that. They think, this is mine. I'm like, how comes? So notice again, but glory, honor, and peace to every man that worketh good, to the Jew first. So if you work good, you get good. Now somebody said, but how about the grace of God? Well, he's meriting you. You didn't get it because of your merit. If you did bad, you get good. It's because somebody gave it to you. You didn't work for it. But if you work for something, you should be compensated or be recognized. It is just simply fair. And so you, as going out there today to work, you're basically putting in your day's work, and you get the respect you get. It's yours. It is nobody else. Somebody should not get it. Now, if you want to give it to somebody, you're giving it to them, but it's from your merit. It's from your work. They didn't deserve it. It's grace. And that's okay. But the respect has to still come back to you that did the labor. And when we approach life like that, and we approach life like the glory and the honor belong to the person that did the work, and it should be no respect of person. But if I'm doing the work and somebody say, I need to get the benefit of it, and then the question is why? Why you should get the benefit of it? That's not fair. You work and you get what you work for. But again, notice here it says in verse 8, I'll read verse 8 just to bring down the context of the same chapter, Romans 2, verse 8. But unto them that are contentious and do not obey the truth, but obey unrighteousness, indignation and wrath, tribulation and anguish upon every soul of man that doeth evil, of the Jew first, and also of the Gentile. So you compensated for what you do. You can't expect to get benefits when you're not doing the right thing. You can't expect to, sometimes you see these politicians, they know the deal, they know what is right, they do wrong, and then the people say it's time for you to quit, and they're fighting, and the people have to come out and protest and start to even burn stuff, and then the person says, okay, I'll resign. Like, well, why are you waiting so long? You know the deal. You don't do right, you get out of office. So that's just the reality of life, a life of service instead of oppression. Because if one wants to get the as I said, the big job, well, one have to do what the big job requires, but one cannot not do the job and then expect to sit in that position. So it's the same thing with you. Your right to what you're doing today and your right to the compensation that you get is based upon the job. But if your boss comes around and say, hey, look, you have not done the job, you shouldn't get the compensation, why argue? Now, if you did the job and the boss says you're not going to get the compensation, you have right to argue. You have right to go get yourself a lawyer, and you have right to sue. If you know that the job you're doing is value $50,000 and they're paying you 40, you have a right to say, hey, look, I need my extra $10,000 because that's theft. Now, if they say, well, we can't give you, let's make a deal, then you make a deal. And whatever the deal you agree upon, that's the deal. And they say, well, you know what happened? We'll split the difference. We give you 45. You say, okay, thanks. But you know that you have a right to the labor that you do because that is your investment over the years of education and development of skills. So a life of service doesn't mean that you're not respected and given the honor and a just due. It just simply means that you're asking for just due. You're not asking for too much or too little. You're being fair. And when we live like this, then we avoid a lot of the contentions we see in the world. Because most of the contentions we see in the world is simply because people want to take more than what they're supposed to be compensated, or somebody don't want to pay out what they're supposed to pay out. And this is the big thing. You think about it, we made our darling, that's a good example here, we make our darling country, the country that is most oppressive. We say China, which is a communist nation, which when I was younger, I always learned that Americans hate communism. They're pro-capitalism, they're pro-free market. But we went and make a darling country that was one of the most oppressive countries in the world because they would give us cheap goods. So our morality and the integrity of respecting good service and compensating people for the service became secondary to our philosophies of free market, free enterprise, and basically paying somebody for what they do. And we say, well, let's go to which, like somebody thinking and say, which nation is most oppressive and have the worst philosophy when it come on to workers' rights and not oppressing people. So, oh, China, hey, let's go to China and do business with them. It's kind of a weird dichotomy and hypocrisy. So with us, we'll be like, no, well, let's find the country that gives the best benefits to its workers. And it's going to give us a fair deal. It's going to make sure that the workers are paid, the products are made good, they have some good policies for environmental policies, so don't destroy the environment in order to make cheap goods and so forth. And then we say, what's the product cost? And then somebody said, well, product going to cost $5 per product to make in that country. And then someone said, but China could destroy its environment, abuse its workers, and we could pay them, $2.50 per product. And somebody said, hey, let's go for $2.50. I said, no, you don't do that. We have to answer to God also for the destruction of the environment. But we have to live here, right? So we all have to live here. Why destroy it? And why destroy it for the kids that are coming up next? In Exodus 22, verse 21 through 27, Exodus 22, verse 21 through 27. Notice it says here, thou shalt neither vex a stranger nor oppress him, for ye were strangers in the land of Egypt. So this is basically the theory here that I love with the Bible, because the Bible teaches me that I shouldn't vex a stranger. Now, somebody said, well, if the person not living in my country, they're not a stranger. Well, yeah, they're strange to me. And so if they're strange to me, I'm still gonna do right by the person. What if I know that the economy is weaker in another country, so I could pay less? Yes, but you still pay a reasonable wage. If you go somewhere and like you have to pay, say $8 an hour for a person doing this job. But the country I'm going to do business with, they really pay people about $1 an hour. But when I check it out, I know dollar hours is what they'll pay them. But I know, for the person to even live a decent life, they probably need $2 an hour. And I'm realizing, man, I'm getting the work done for 8 times less. It's not gonna kill you to not eat your conscience and just say, I paid them $2 an hour. I even paid them $1.50 an hour. I make them happy, and they're gonna get that extra 50 cents per hour, and they're gonna be so thankful because they got a raise immediately by working for this company, 50 cents more. It doesn't hurt, and you know what it is. That means you can go to that facility and you can use the products. You don't have to worry about the workers are not gonna treat you good because you're treating them right. No, say you go and they know that you pay $8 an hour, and abroad, in your country, and you go there and you're like, they say, well, we want that same $8, and you say, well, it doesn't work like that because now I have to off the satellite the business and all that. There's some costs involved, and I'm not coming here per se. I'm coming here still to make some money. So you negotiate. It is just the issue of fairness across the board. It's not, people do what they have to do to make money. It's all about making money. But still, make the money and be fair. It's not going to hurt anybody because really what it is that each of us are here to serve the other person in one capacity or the other. And each of us are not just doing it because we want to be nice per se. We're doing it because we want to take care of our business. We probably have plans, ideas, hopes, dreams, and we all have it. And so we're going out there working to accomplish these things. And so we want to make some money, and the other person want to make some money also. So we all can make some money. We all can do our business. We all, want to be able to take pride. I don't guess not everybody, but a lot of people want to take pride in what they do. It's not just the money. It's also the pride, it's the service. It's, most of us find our place in life by the job we do, find our place in society by the job we do. So it's more than that. So if you can get that nice, even keel situation where you're working, you're getting to accomplish your dreams and goals, you're getting to pay your bills, and you can enjoy your work, it's a good setup. But if you're working and you really enjoy doing the labor you do, but the compensation is just horrendous, it takes away from the appreciation of doing the work because you're always hungry. So if thou, verse 23, if thou, verse 22, I say, you shall not afflict any widow or fatherless, if thou afflict them in any wise, and they cried all unto me. I will surely hear their cry, and my wrath shall wax hot, and I will kill you with the sword, and your wives shall be widows, and your children fatherless. So the state that we don't want to have existing in our society, we want everybody to be happy. We don't have to. We just want to be able to do our thing, serve what we have to serve within the hours that we can serve, and we go home. And we want to be able to enjoy the things that we have in our family, and we don't want to have to oppress anybody, and we don't want to oppress anybody, and to be oppressed or to oppress. And this is what he's talking about here. Don't create a situation for others because that situation might come upon yours. And when we live like this, life is better. And I know, as you look at history, you see that that's been history. One group trying to dominate another group so they can basically serve them, and they abuse them. And the Lord says, why do we do this? So it is after 1798, this became more prominent, this movement towards freeing the masses and towards fair labor and all these type of stuff, and no child labor and all that type of thing. But if you read the Bible, you can see from when Moses wrote all these things over 3,000 something years ago, that when Moses wrote all these things, this has been a problem. This is not a new problem that we're facing. It is just more now there's a cry in the last probably 200 years to stop it. But this thing has been always an issue, but at least the Bible writes this down for our learning that God, from God's point of view, God doesn't want you to oppress me, and God doesn't want me to oppress you. It is the desire of God. Now, it's not necessarily something that has ever stopped on the earth, but it is God's desire for you and I to basically put in your day's labor and get the compensation for your day's labor. Notice here it says here, if thou lend money to any of my people that is poor by thee, thou shalt not be to him as an usurer, neither shalt thou lay upon him usury. So usury is just unreasonable. It is, you lend the money to somebody, man, they're going to be a slave. In other words, and this is something they did. And if you remember, after the financial crash, none of the people who did the crash went to prison. And remember, those same guys, if you go to them right now, you say, hey, should that guy selling weed, marijuana, go to prison? They'll say, yeah. But when they did the financial crash, they're like, hey, don't put us in prison for our wickedness. But notice here, one of the things they did, which I think was sensible, is that if you have a credit card statement, hopefully you don't have a credit card statement, but if you do have one, like most of us do, and you look at your credit card statement, they had basically forced the industry, or require of the industry, I don't know which word you want to use, phrase, to start putting on it how long it's going to take for you to pay the credit card if you only pay the minimum payment. Because what it is that a person could be perpetually paying credit card payment or paid much longer. Because when you buy a car, it's a fixed asset. So the asset is there, it's depreciating, but monthly that you have a fixed monthly payment and a fixed time to pay the car off, which makes sense because it's depreciating asset. Whereas most of the things that you put on credit cards are not, they're nothing a lot of times. A plane ticket is nothing. You wait and you come back, you still owe the money. It's not a depreciating asset, it's an asset that disappears in time. It's a time-honored asset, so to speak. And so you're paying, and you're going to pay for this thing now. And so 10 years later, you could be paying for that plane ticket. And you're paying for something that you can't even remember where you went and what you did. So this is the problem with that. So they start to require them to do a simple thing as just telling you what you're in for, because you're in for a lot of payments. And as you're paying that, you can pay that debt or that initial money you borrow many times over, worse than a house and a car. So but you could put a person in perpetual payment, so the person is like a slave by innocence. So when they put some of these rules in place, people are like, oh no, they're putting too much rules on these financial institutions. No, it's just we live in a time where there's rules against usury that most of the time people don't even know, because of, I believe this is the era that God has us in. This is the era of the Day of Atonement, the sabbatical, where people get rest from all this oppressive slave labor. Because it's slave labor. You're paying, you're never going to pay. Notice here, verse 26 says, if thou at all take thy neighbor's raiment to pledge, thou shalt deliver it unto him by that the sun goeth down. For that is his covering only. It is his raiment for his skin. Wherein shall he sleep? And it shall come to pass, when he cried unto me, that I will hear, for I am gracious. So this is where the problem is. If you talk to probably, I don't know what percentage, I wish somebody could do a survey and ask somebody, say, what do you think about this rule in the Bible? In general, I'm going to apply it for you here. You will see that, we have to live a life of service, and we have to be gracious and be kind to people, merciful. What it's saying basically here is that, when the night comes down, and I don't know what the temperature, what it was exactly like, but we have an idea in the Bible what it was like in the desert, that because there's no cloud covering and there's no trees or anything, it gets real cold at night, and then real hot in the day. Blistering hot in the day, real cold at night. So so say now, just give an example. I don't know how perfect this example is. The man owe you some money. You say, hey, look, or you want to borrow something. And he said, look, I'm going to borrow $5 from you. I'll give you my raiment. I'll give you my ability, my only ability wherewithal to keep warm at night. And you say, okay, you pledge this to me, I'll take it. You hold on to the man raiment. But night is coming. Now, whatever he borrowed that $5 from, he was desperate. So he might not be thinking well. And he foolishly give his raiment for pledge. Now the night is coming, and what he's gonna like, oh my word, what I just did, I just gave away my ability to keep warm. And he start to freeze, and it's night. And somebody would say, well, you should have some sense. But he probably was in one desperate situation, needed that $5. He borrowed the $5 from you. He give his raiment for pledge foolishly because of the desperation. Now he's over here now, it's freezing, and he's there and crying, God, you see what this wicked man did to me? Now most people, this is what I want a survey to be done, because most people would, I believe, would say, well, the rule is the rule. He's stupid. He shouldn't give his raiment. Which is true. It's a dumb thing to do. But the person who took the raiment is wicked. And God says, if you do this, I'm going to beat you up. Because you know the man is freezing. And if you were in a situation, you were desperate, you wouldn't want someone to use your desperation against you like that. So this is why we talk about the life of Sir. Because you see, the man that's lending money, so ought to know that says, look, there's a situation you can put people in that they might agree to it, but it's wicked. This is my point. And if you're a human being, you can serve and know, yeah, that's not going to work. But somebody say it's legal. Yeah, it's legal, but it is, and the person chooses to. But the person made a dumb choice and you shouldn't go along with it. And this can be applied to many industries. So you could be in an industry and you have to put yourself in the customer situation. And because the customer is desperate, you shouldn't take advantage of the customer, because desperation make people make dumb choices. And you know it's a dumb choices, and you're looking at them and thinking that's a dumb choice. Why did they do that? But you can't do business where you're making people making dumb choices on your behalf for you to make profit, because it's profit. It's an issue of profit. It's not an issue of need. So the person making a dumb choice so that you can profit. You already have money. You're just going to make extra money off of the person suffering. So the person here, Bible says, when the person cry and God hear the cry, God gonna beat you up. And it's the same thing, sometimes I see these things where somebody say, hey, there's a rule, and the rule is you're coming legally. There's a rule, and the rule is if I'm starving, I'm busting the door down because I'm desperate. But somebody will say, oh no, but you have to play by the rule. There's no rule when you're starving. And it's like, you're dumb. The person is going to freeze at night, or they're fleeing from being killed. I can show you in amazement. This is amazing. And you can see a video where it shows people who are basically fleeing from bloodlust people, from people murdering them. And they fled and came to America illegally. And the Americans say they shouldn't come. They should follow the process. There's a rule. And I'm like, if somebody's hunting me down, and my choice is go to a country legally or be massacred, I don't think there's a choice. You tell me. So we should, but this is where the problem is. Many people fleeing, as I look at it, from oppression, because nobody want to be oppressed. So this is something we're still fighting with, so to speak, in modern times. This is what we call anything I can think after 1800 modern times. But yet modern times, we're still struggling with that, to see that oppression is a problem, and it's a problem around the world, never stopped. Even though government might say, yeah, we signed on to some treaty at the UN and whatever, we're going to do right by our citizens. But human beings is oppressed. This is a sin problem that we have. Notice in Exodus 3, verse 9 and 10. Exodus 3, verse 9 and 10. 10 says, now therefore, behold, the cry of the children of Israel is come unto me, and I have also seen the oppression wherewith the Egyptians oppressed them. Come now therefore, and I will send thee unto Pharaoh, that thou mayst bring forth my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. So Moses was very clearly instructed, you're going to bring these people out. So when you think about Egypt, what comes to my mind is always the pyramids. The pyramids, even though they say they have some type of celestial, astrological function, and there could be other functions. We don't know what those functions are. But if you look at that, the pyramid to me, there's a lot of things that it could mean. But one of the things it means to me is that the Egyptians, what it did to the Hebrews in enslaving them was unnecessary. That's so simply. It's unnecessary. In other words, there was enough money and enough waste of labor and enough whatever to go around that they didn't need to enslave them to build nonsense. That's what I look at it as. It's just nonsense. It is. Somebody could say, well, it has archaeological value for history. It's just a bunch of rubble. It's nonsense, in the sense of how it was built, because there was enough money. It was unnecessary. It is. It is. There's a certain point where you're eating 3 square meal. You have somewhere to live. You blah blah. You're living. Everything above that is what's the point? And if you have it, good for you. But it's what's the point of doing that at the hurt of other people? You're good. You have $1 billion in the bank. You're good. Okay, now you have 10 billion. You're good beyond understanding. Oh, you want $100 billion? Why? Why do that? Why people can't even pay their bills and they're working? I'm not talking about people who are loafers or idlers. People are working. People are working for you. Who are so rich that you could share some of the money. So worse what was going on in Egypt. And so when God said, look, take them out, it is again, as you see this concept of this struggle that we have, a life of service or we do a life of oppression. The Egyptians unnecessarily just wasting all this money, and wasting our money for what? For what? What we're oppressing? Oh, somebody say, oh no, we don't have no money for that. Yeah, we have money to be shooting up rockets up in the air, and we're trying to land on Mars and all kind of nonsense. So the money's there. The money is not a lack of money. We have money for at the tune of $700 billion for war. All this war breaking the back of the country, it never stopped because we fighting against trying to find weapons of mass destruction. So the money is not a lack of money. We can see the devastation and the bombing that's been done, and yet we say we can't do this, we can't do that. We can do it. It's just the mindset and the will not there. So notice the oppression. I say all this to say, the oppression in Egypt was not to provide food for the Egyptians. You didn't hear that one. The oppression in Egypt was not to basically make the Egyptians have Egyptian cotton sheets. It was not so that they can have raiment. The oppression in Egypt was nonsense. It was unnecessary. It was brutal for no reason. And oppression, it seemed to always be characterized by that. If you're just going out there to do your day job and if you have a business, so to speak, and you're just going out there to serve the community, to serve your customers, and just to make some money, you're going to find that if all you want to do is just live a comfortable life, and even if you want to throw in some luxuries in there, you don't need to rob people. You don't need to con people. You don't need to steal people. You can do an honest day labor and get the honest day paycheck, and it's all good. I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna say this again. You don't have to do any of that. You can put in your honest day labor. You can have a decent house. You can have 1 or 2 or even 3 chariots. So you can, have chariots with 100 and something to 2, 3, 4, 500 horsepower. I don't know what. I mean, this is unnecessary. I'm not saying if you own a chariot that have 500 horsepower that you're sinning or anything, but I'm just simply saying, if you have that, man, you're doing better than Pharaoh. I guarantee Pharaoh only probably had 6 horses. So, it is okay. The people that work with you can give them a little extra. You already have chariots with that type of horsepower. I saw this person they had a Trackhawk, Jeep Trackhawk with a 1,000 horsepower. They pump that thing up to 1,000 horse pulling you. Yeehaw. we don't, when you start getting to that level, why you need to oppress anybody? You're good. You're good. You have all the horses you can imagine. So it's the unnecessariness of this. So it is just simply, as you go to work this week, you can put in your honest day labor, put in your honest week labor, get an honest compensation for that, and live a very comfortable life. No matter what, if it's a fair compensation, you can do that. Now, somebody like, now, I want to be able to con people. I want to lie to people. I want to do scams and do all this type of stuff. I want to go rob a country and steal what they have. It's unnecessary because it's not, we ain't starving. Ain't nothing that we're doing to rob anybody else's, because it is for luxury. It's for foolishness like the pyramid. It is not because we're hungry over here. And when you start seeing that, you start to see that the life of service that Christ called us to live is just a better life. In Matthew 20, verse 25 through 29, Matthew 20, verse 25 through 29, it says, "But Jesus called them unto him, and said, Ye know that the princes of the Gentile exercise dominion over them, but they that are great exercise authority upon them. And they that are great are not but they that are great exercise authority over them." Verse 26 now say, "But it shall not be so among you. But whosoever will be great among you, let him be your minister. And whosoever will be chief among you, let him be your servant. Even as the Son of Man came not to be ministered unto, but to minister, and to give his life a ransom for many." And as they departed from Jericho, a great multitude followed him. So to make this present truth, as you know, if you think about it, when the Egyptians were oppressing the Hebrews, one of their fear was that the Hebrew would become too much in multitude. They become too prosperous and too big in population. And so they became fearful of the Hebrews, that they will multiply. And they said if they multiply too much and they become too much in population, they might betray them, or they might try to overcome them or overthrow them. So the Egyptians got up this idea to start aborting or killing the babies of the Hebrews, and they start to oppress them and to overwork them and not compensate them, and to have them do silly jobs like building those pyramids. So we see this type of stuff. At least that's what I assume they built the pyramids. Somebody could tell me that's historically not true, but so we go with that. Just they built the pyramids, or just nonsense work. So when we think about that, so they were building all this thing, but the aim was to keep them down. But it wasn't necessary. I think a lot of these things are human fear. We always fear that, people always say, I want to be my own boss. And then they go start their own company, and then they file in bankruptcy. Sometimes it's okay to work for somebody else. A lot of times it's okay. Somebody's taking care of the business. If they're the good jefe, if they're the good boss and they're taking care of the business, man, then take it to business. You serve well, and you serve them well, and you get compensated for that. Because the more responsibility you have is the more pressure. If Pharaoh did right by the Hebrews, he wouldn't have to worry. If his people had treated the Hebrews right, then God wouldn't have to beat them up, and the Hebrews would love them. Because remember, Joseph was going to be killed by his own, and he found a place and great honor and respect amongst the Egyptians, and the Egyptians blessed him, and he blessed them, and God blessed the Egyptians because of Joseph. So people don't get this. People believe, if these people become prominent and go oppress you. Joseph never oppressed the Egyptians, because look, the Egyptians took care of him. His own people wanted to kill him. Come on now. Much of us are in that situation. What is a refugee anyhow? A refugee is a person who he ain't having a good time amongst his own people. So he go run to somewhere else, hoping that probably they'll treat me better. And if they beat him up, he'll be like, man, I can't find no place to rest my feet. So you just compensate people, and you take care of people. And some people are no good. They're little scoundrels. You take care of them, and they'll still treat you bad. We've been through that. It's life. But there's always somebody that's going to be, man, you're not my people, but, I'm going to take care of you. You take care of me. We're good. Exodus 23, verse 9. Exodus 23, verse 9. Notice it says that, also thou shalt not oppress a stranger, for ye know the heart of a stranger, seeing ye were strangers in the land of Egypt. So they were strangers in the land of Egypt. They gave oppressive work. They got beaten up. They got abused by the Egyptians. So Christ says, you know the heart. Notice he didn't say you know the philosophy or the thinking. You know the heart. Man, we came here, we working, we blessing the Egyptians, and look how they're treating us. And you become fearful. So he says, you know how they feel because you feel terrible. And it's the heart. I mean, I was watching a video with some of the last night I was watching this video with some of the people from Mauritania who had flee and they came to somewhere. All of a sudden, I'm slipping now. Somewhere in Ohio, I think it is, and now they're fearful because now the people in Ohio want them out, and so some of them thinking they're gonna flee to um to Canada. And it broke my heart when I went in the comment section and read the comments of the American people saying, basically get out. And I'm like, because what happened, I know the heart of a stranger. And these people, oh man, you're trying to flee murder in your country, and you come to another people and they be like, get out. And you be like, that's, to be treated like a dog and run like a dog. Even a dog shouldn't be treated like a dog. It's rough. So you see this, and so he says, look, you know the heart of stranger. The person come in and they're willing to work, whatever. They don't want to do work, they want to do a crime. Man, get them out of here. I understand that. I'm for that. Just in case somebody misunderstand. I'm pro rule and law and the commandment. But you treat people who are, man, they're fleeing and they're beaten up. And I always remember when I was young, probably why my mindset is not like people like that. I remember when I was young, there was a guy I knew in my community. A guy used to do yard work. So, he's not at the top of the totem pole, at the bottom. And he used to do yard work, and something happened. I don't know what happened. And later on, I find out that basically it's just some bad mind people who are after him. Because, he's coming in doing they're all Jamaican and everything. And an argument ensued, and a few guys started chasing to kill him and blooded him. And I remember he ran through our yard. And as a young man, that shocked me because it was like me and my mom was home. And I remember we couldn't do anything about it because it was just me and my mom. And my mom wanted to do something for the guy. And I always remember, you look out for those who are less fortunate, because and I remember you couldn't do anything about it. So when I see these people like beating up people who are strangers, I was like, God, you have to act because it's not right. Because I know if I was older, when that thing happened, I was a little boy, but if I was older, I would probably take out I would just get a machete and take out one of these guys who were chasing this guy. It would be nothing for me. Because it's just and my mom would have probably told, go ahead, take them out. Because it's like, you don't do that to people who are vulnerable, who are not from the community, because I think he wasn't from the community. And so sometimes people get jealous because you're there working, you're trying to make a way, and pick a fight for no reason. This is wickedness. And so when you see that, God says, I see the heart of the stranger, I see their cry, I hear their cry. And God will answer to the cry of the strangers who are being abused for no reason. The money is so much. The money is here. Why are we doing this? We're building pyramids, modern day pyramids. Our pyramids have a rocket. And we're doing the same astrology, astronomical, that's what they'll say, astronomy. But it's really astrology, it's witchcraft. And instead of we building pyramids and having to look at these great pyramids, we put a rocket on it and we blow it up into space. It's the same astrology nonsense. It's the same witchcraft. We ain't going to Mars. We are quarantined on this earth. But we waste all this money, but we say, well, we have nothing for the poor. And we know the heart of a stranger, that the stranger is fearful, and we abuse. We take advantage. We pay cheap labor. And we don't pay the man for the just compensation of his hard work. It is sad. So that when God acts, and you see brutality, and people say, why God does that? We say, you don't understand the pain that you're causing others. And so when you feel pain, you'll understand the pain of others. Now, in James chapter 5, verse 1 through 8, James 5, verse 1 through 8, it says, "Go to now, ye rich men, weep and howl, for your miseries shall come upon you." And God is fair. So people say, "Well, how about all this cancer and stuff like that?" Like, God knows what these rich are doing. So when their kids suffer from all this weirdness, you're like, you see pain, and you must see pain because you're causing others pain. Your riches are corrupted, and your garments are moth-eaten. Your gold and silver is cankered, and the rest of them shall be witness against you, and shall eat your flesh as it were fire. Ye have heaped treasure together for the last days. Behold, the hire of your laborers who have reaped down your field, which is of you kept back by a fraud, cried, and the cries of them which have reaped are entered into the ears of the Lord of Sabaoth. Notice here, the Bible is very consistent to Genesis, from Genesis through Revelation. When the poor cry, God hears. When the poor are oppressed, God sees. When the cry of the afflicted come up to God, God hears. It is this cry that came up from Sodom. And like the Egyptians who were Sodomites the same way. And here we have all these Sodomites who are living freely, fruity lifestyle and don't care about those who are suffering. Notice here in this text, for years, when I just started reading the Bible, I would read the New King James Version. I would stay away from the King James Version, which is where I do my presentations from and I preach from. But for reading, even at my bedside, I always have a New King James Bible next to me to read, because it is, I don't have to deal with some of the language that is not normally used in our modern vernacular. So it's easier for the brain to understand what it's saying. And I always find this text interesting because the word used is not reap down, which is it's the same thing as the New King James Version. But the New King James Version doesn't use reap down, which is fascinating. You use the word or the phrase mow. So I find that fascinating. Now, if you take mow and reap, and you've heard me say it here, whether it be picking tomatoes or mowing people's lawn, you say, who does that type of work? It's always those who are less fortunate, those who are sometimes strangers, those who are doing the hard manual labor. In other words, you could do probably 5 different phrases there, and the point is taken. You know who's being described. And the person who's being described, that God hear the cry, are those who are reaping the field. Reaping, and are those that are mowing the lawn. So you look around and say, who mowed the lawn? Who God hear? Who's God hearing their cry? And God, you say, oh, these people. So we take care of those people. You respect hard labor. You respect a man about his labor. Somebody said, no, you respect people with papers. No. You respect the person who put the labor in independent or separate from paperwork. And you say, why would I say that? Don't I respect the law? Yeah, I do. But there's people with the paperwork and not doing the job. And there's somebody that don't have the paperwork doing the job. I respect it. Why? Because the Lord over the years have always put me in a situation where I've learned to have great respect for the job itself, not for the paperwork. So somebody, what are you talking about? Well, I'll give you an example. You could have a person that is a pastor, is trained, he did a 4-year, then he did a master's, and he even do a PhD. And he's not doing the labor. Now you have a person who didn't get the paperwork, but he's doing the labor. He didn't do the 4-year, didn't do the 2-year, but he's doing the labor. He's ministering in the word and in doctrine and in life. And he's doing the labor. But somebody said, I can only respect the person who has the paperwork. But I've learned that if the person has the paperwork and then doing the labor, they too should be justly compensated. And if the person have the paperwork but they're not doing the labor, they should not be justly compensated. It's the person doing the labor. Now somebody say, well, what do you do with the person who doesn't have the paper but they're doing the work? They should be justly compensated. Because there's a lot of people who have the paper but they're not doing the work. There's a lot of people who I would consider better citizens, but they don't have the paper. So the paper is good, but if I want a job done and I can't find somebody to do the job who has the paper, but the job need to be done. So you say I should just close shop and don't do the job? Because we're talking about service. A life of service is you're serving. If you have the paper, you should do the service. Then you don't need somebody to have the paper. And that would be good. I have no problem with that. But if the service, if the, somebody said, Lord, we need the garbage pickup, and we can't find people with a paper to do the garbage pickup. Well, the garbage still need to be picked up. Lord, we need the gospel preached, but we can't find people with a paper to preach the gospel. They're preaching all kind of madness. They ain't preaching the gospel, or they're not doing anything. They're lazy. Lazy, I said dogs that can't bark. They won't bark and they won't bite. And if they bite, they have rubber teeth. But we're still in the gospel preach. Somebody like, no, preach the gospel. Let's close the churches unless we can't find our people. And I've seen this. And this is why this is so fascinating to me, because right now, and if you've been following what's going on across the United States, but they're closing churches in all denominations. Now, if I come along and say, I don't have the paper, but, I'll do the work. Keep the church open. They'll be like, no, let's close the church. If you don't have the paper, you can't do the work. Get out of here. Okay, close the church. Then you watch the wickedness goes up in the society and people shooting more people. And then they say, yeah, but you didn't have the paper, you couldn't do the work. So, I've just learned to realize is that the work doesn't stop because there's no paper or people without paper. The work still needs to happen. And this is why people play the fool. Because you notice they did a raid a few weeks ago at the packaging plant, but people still need to go to Walmart and buy the Great Valley chicken. I say they should have just arrest all the managers and the owners of the company and shut it down. And then no chicken, if that's the philosophy. And then you can start seeing the philosophy is foolish. Because what we need to do, I just think, I think the experiment should be run. You have no paper, you should, everybody just, get them out of here, everybody. Just all 11 million, get them out. And if you're brown skin, get them out, just get it to everybody. And then make it become like Norway. So this is the problem. It is because then you start to see that we need people to serve us. And we need people to do certain jobs for us. And that's the issue. You just need the work done. And the work doesn't change because of all that. So the cry goes up. And they say, you have lived in pleasure on the earth and been wanton. You have nourished your hearts as in a day of slaughter. Ye have condemned and killed the just, and he doth not resist you. Anybody resisting them? It's just they're killing these people and abusing people, and it's unnecessary. Be patient, therefore, brethren, until the coming of the Lord. Behold, the husbandman waited for the precious fruit of the earth, and had long patience for it, until he received the early and latter rain. Be ye also patient, establish your heart, for the coming of the Lord draweth nigh. So we see this wickedness increase. Basically, the Bible is saying, don't fret your heart too much. Remember, it's all about the heart. And it's troubling the heart because you see the abuse of people. Just like how I'm sure when the Egyptians were abusing the Hebrews, they were crying out, and it's like, man, these people are wicked. And yet God says, look, I'm going to deliver you. Establish your heart. The time is coming. And it happened. And so we just have to keep patient because the Lord is going to take care of the business. And we just have to believe. In Romans chapter 12, Romans 12 verse 9 through 13. Romans 12 verse 9 through 13. So a life of service is what we want to do. We don't want to be oppressed, and we don't want to oppress nobody. And even though, if you see somebody come and they come work for you, you pay them, you take care of them, you hook them up. I've seen situations where somebody be like, oh yeah, I'm going to do something for you. And yeah, you're a pastor, so I'm going to, I said, no, don't do anything for me for free. You pay people. You're just like, I pay you. I want you to be happy, and I want you to take care of your family, and I'm going to take care of my own family. I'm good and you're good. You pay people. But, you could be like, yeah, I could be like, yeah, I'm going to use my idea of being a pastor to get over on people. Like, no, just pay people. They put in the hard day labor, they need the hard day pay. Let love be, Romans chapter 12, verse 9 onwards. Let love be without dissimulations, no cantankerousness, no hating on people. Abhor that which is evil, cleave to that which is good. Be kindly affection one to another with brotherly love. In honor, preferring one another. So you know what happened? You go first, man. you can go first. That's what's missing. And that's why you see the gospel is so powerful, because you can see the contrast between those who know God and know Him not. Even people who claim to be religious, they don't know God. Man, you have more than heart desire. You can build pyramids and put a rocket on the pyramid and shoot it into outer space and go litter outer space. And you just burning money. And you're like, oh, man, you can't prefer nobody else. But when you're a Christian, you'll be like, you go ahead. You go before me. If you've been in line and somebody said to you, oh, you have one item, go ahead. You'll be like, praise the Lord. I'm going to have to sit here and wait for the rest of the time. I can just keep going about my business. And then, when somebody is in that same situation, you return a favor. Okay, you understand. A person is going to cash one thing and go. Yeah, okay, you go ahead. I have a whole bunch of stuff. It's just preferring somebody else. It's just saying, I'm good. You can go ahead. My stomach is full. You can go fill your stomach now. Go ahead, man. You already get my opportunity. I'm doing well for myself. You can go get yours too. Not slothful in business, but fervent in spirit, serving the Lord. So our work, when we go out today, all week, we're serving the Lord. Somebody say, I'm serving customers. Yeah, but, God sees your work. And God knows that, look, this is one of my kids. This is one of my children that don't oppress people, that take care of people, make sure people are okay. You prefer somebody else. You're good. Now, if you're hungry, you said to me, hey, look, I'm hungry. I just need some food. And the person like, hey, you go ahead. I'm good today. You can go to the front of the line. And that's what it is. It's like sometimes we got to make somebody's go in front of the line. Notice here it says, rejoicing in hope, patient in tribulation, continuing instant in prayer. So we have to keep praying, because as we see this type of debauchery going on, people, we live in a society that's a Xanaxed up, opiate up, coked up. And yet, we're not doing good. Really? With all this coke? How we have all this coke and we're not doing good? We coked up to the hilt, but yet we're broke. We're drinking brewskis all day long, but we're broke. So we can be okay. Distributing to the necessity of the saints, giving to hospitality. So, somebody can come over and eat some of my food. It's all right. One plate of food is it's not gonna make or break. If you can't give up one plate of food for somebody who's hungry, and you're doing something wrong, you're just a mess financially. You need to call me personally. We need to talk. One plate of food is not gonna hurt anybody. You can, even once a week, if you give up a plate of food, and don't mean fast. Cook the food and give it to somebody. Go give it to a poor person. It ain't gonna kill you. If it's killing you, that means you're doing something wrong, or you probably like me, you're too slim. You probably need to eat 2 more plates of food to make up. But something is wrong. We can give up a little bit. For the sake of time, I say if I can read. In 1 Peter 3, verse 8 through 9, it says, finally, be ye all of one mind, having compassion one to another. Love as brethren, be pitiful, be courteous, not rendering evil for evil, railing for railing, but contrariwise blessing, knowing that ye are thereunto called, that ye should inherit a blessing. You want a blessing? You give a blessing. You're called to give a blessing. So we don't like the rest of the society. We call to bless people who are less fortunate. We have something already. We can bless somebody. For he that will love life and see good days, let him refrain his tongue from evil, and his lip from speaking no guile, that they may speak no guile. Let him eschew evil and do good. Let him seek peace and ensue it, or pursue it. So this is what we're called to. We're called for peace. We're called to be a blessing. We're called to live a life of service instead of oppressing. We know that this is where the society is struggling. Everybody wants to do little and get a lot. Everybody wants to steal out, cheat their contractors out of money. This is what people want to do. But we just want to enjoy what we have and work for it. And just do good service, so that when people receive our labor, they say, man, that was good service. We want to be the best customer service we can be for our people that we serve. Let us pray. Our Father who art in heaven, I thank you for today, for the blessings of being able to work, being able to give, being able to give back, and being able to communicate. May you bless those that were here, bless those that will listen on the podcast, and may you be with us, dear Lord, that we might put in a good day's labor and enjoy the fruit of our labor, and bless those, especially who do not have. This is my prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. Thanks for being with me here on Revive Reform Radio. Looking forward to talking to you tomorrow live again, where we should talk about the importance of church. Until then, I pray that you may continue to walk with the King.